Hello, and welcome back to another episode of Samondo Talks. My name is Christina, and I'm here to introduce you to some of the smartest Amazon experts from all over the world. If you've already subscribed to our channel, good job. If you're new to our channel and you'd like to get some industry insights, hear some interesting stories about entrepreneurship, and learn some useful hacks that you can apply to your own Amazon business, make sure you subscribe to our channel now and hit that notification bell so you will never miss another episode again. My guest for you today is Ryan Gnesin, founder and CEO of Elevate Brands. Elevate Brands is a professional acquisition company that buys and grows established Amazon brands. We will talk about the right timing to sell your Amazon business, how to determine its value, and how the process of selling your business looks like when you decide to sell it to Elevate Brands. I would say, without further ado, let's say hi to Ryan. All right, perfect. All right, Ryan, so glad to have you here. How are you today and where are you? It looks really sunny where you're at.
Yeah, I'm great. Thanks for having me. I'm in Tulum, Mexico. Typically I'm based in New York, but my wife and I decided since we don't have an office anyway, we're going to come and spend a month in Tulum and work from here.
Oh, that's interesting. So your whole team is just like spread all over the world?
Yeah, we're in about 16 different cities. We've got about 45 people and it's growing quickly. And we've made the decision with COVID and whatnot that we're going to hire the best people wherever we find them, as opposed to just picking a specific city. But as COVID starts to wind down, hopefully, within this year, we're going to look to set up some offices, probably in Austin, Texas, and also New York.
Awesome. I think a lot of entrepreneurs have picked up on the strategy in terms of building a diverse team all over the world. I mean, if not now, then when, All right, let's talk about Elevate for a bit. What is Elevate Brands?
So Elevate Brands is an Amazon seller where we essentially acquire other Amazon sellers and then we look to grow them and elevate them to their full potential. So we implement best practice across customer service and branding and creative, supply chain, logistics, SEO, and PPC. We essentially grew up as Amazon sellers, and we've evolved to become an acquirer of other Amazon sellers.
And you recently went through a rebranding process yourself, right?
Yeah.
Why is that?
Well, previously we were called Recom Brands, and we had a new CMO join us a couple of months ago, and she asked us, are we married to the name? And I said, why, what's wrong with the name? And she said, well, it kind of sounds like you're a telecommunications company as opposed to, a company that acquires Amazon businesses. And if we're open to it, let's look and see whether we could, whether a rebrand makes sense. And we kind of polled the name and our new name versus a few other names. And it turned out people didn't really like the word, the name Recom didn't really resonate, and Elevate really does resonate. And it's much more in line with how we see ourselves in terms of actually elevating brands to their full potential. So we decided to do that before we announce our Series A, and really the business starts to take off. We thought now or never. So that's why we made the change, and we feel very happy about it.
Yeah, I think it sounds great. And speaking of taking off, since when are you around?
So I started the business right at the end of 2016. So we've been 2017 was the year that we really tested a bunch of different business models, and then primarily our focus for the first couple of years in the business was actually reselling. So we were buying wholesale closeout inventory, mostly footwear and apparel, branded stuff, and reselling it. And so that's kind of how we learned the Amazon ropes and how we kind of got our Amazon, we like to call it our Amazon black belt, dealing with sort of 8,000 SKUs in a highly operation intensive business. And, we had our Amazon account shut down, and we got all the scars to prove, we've been there and we've done it. And then in 2019 is when we really started to move our attention towards the kind of roll-up approach.
Yeah, I think like this whole industry of buying existing Amazon businesses is really taking off right now. There are a lot of providers out there. So what I'm interested in is, do you only buy US companies and US brands, or also, because in our audience we do have a lot of European sellers as well, would you also consider buying European brands?
Yeah. I mean, we've been primarily focused on the US, but we're very much now starting to focus on Europe as well. So definitely interested to talk to sellers in Europe for sure.
And in terms of size, like we get a lot of questions from sellers who say, yeah, I'm thinking of selling my business, but I don't know if I make enough money for it to be interesting for buyers. So, what would you say? What's your typical, like the typical brand that you buy? How much do they make in revenue?
Yeah, so it changes for us as we grow. So when we first started, a business even doing like $80,000 in EBITDA,
Mm-hmm.
right? And that's kind of like EBITDA as in sellers' discretionary earnings. So that's kind of the size of the business that we started by buying. But as we've progressed now and we have, many more brands, now our kind of minimum size business is probably $500,000 of SDE.
Mm-hmm.
And we buy much bigger than that. So, there's plenty of guys in the space and everyone has different niches, and there's plenty of roll-ups doing much smaller size businesses. But for us, that's kind of the range today is sort of $500,000 of SDE and above.
Is like EBITDA the only thing that you look at, or how do you evaluate a business? Let's say I'm a seller, I want to sell my Amazon business. What do I need to provide? How does the process of selling my business work? Could you just walk me through the process step by step?
Yeah. So okay. So first of all, in terms of what we look for, it's pretty. It's fairly simple. I mean, we look for a great product, right? So it needs to have a large amount of reviews. There's no specific number in mind because it depends on the category and it also depends on the competition. But it needs to have a lot of reviews, or ideally be one of the review leaders in the space. And you want them to be good reviews, right? So I mean, we're typically not buying businesses that have 2.5-star ratings. We want to see sort of four stars and above. And we're looking for businesses that typically are growing, or the niche is growing, or the macro picture is growing. We're not particularly interested in businesses that are like fads that maybe had we're not looking for businesses that sell face masks because that had a COVID kick and then it's fallen, or fidget spinners is the typical example, for example, that, of a fad. But so we want to see, essentially, we're looking for a business that we think has sustainable earnings. At the end of the day, that's why we're paying a multiple for the business. So we want to know that, we want to have confidence that, a year from now, the business is going to be performing as well or better. And there isn't something that's going to, black hat tactics where someone's gamed reviews, those kind of things will turn us off. But if it's a good product and it's been around, let's say 12 months plus, and it's got good reviews, and it's it's got stable or some growth, and we see there's potential to continue to grow the business, that's the kind of business we like.
Another question that I get very often is, when is the perfect timing to sell your Amazon business? I mean, obviously you're interested in buying a business that is, okay, let's say worth 1 million, just for the sake of it. And then you calculate or predict that it will be worth, 2 million in a year. So obviously you buy businesses because you want to make a profit of it. So a lot of sellers ask themselves, if they can grow it to 2 million, then maybe I can grow to 2 million and sell it in 1 year. So how can sellers know when the best timing to sell is?
There's no right answer to this. It is a very personal question. And there's a lot of factors that are involved. Sometimes we have a seller that says to us, you know what, we've decided, the business partnership isn't working. We've decided to separate the business and sell it and go our separate ways. Or someone says, you know what, I'm burnt out. I'm tired. I've been working super hard. I feel like I can take the money and do something else. Or we have a seller that says, you know what, I've always wanted to be in the property investment business and I want to take the money and invest in property. Or it could be that someone says, you know what, I've scaled this business as high as I can. I have 7 people working for me. I have no interest in managing a business that has 20 people. I've scaled it as much as I can. I feel comfortable with it. Let me sell it now, take some chips off the table. And then many times the sellers say, you know what, I'm going to take 50% and invest it somewhere else. And the other 50%, I'm going to reinvest into starting another Amazon business. So again, it's very personal. It depends. There's always a risk that if you continue running a business, of course, there's the chance you're going to grow it. And there's always the risk that a competitor comes out and competes with you and the business goes backwards. So very personal decision.
Speaking of personal reasons, from your opinion, you just mentioned that some sellers sell their business because they maybe feel burned out or because they want to start another project. What is the most common reason for sellers to sell?
At the moment, I would say the most common reason we're seeing is that sellers are looking at the industry and saying, well, the multiples have gone up slightly, right? So in terms of the price that you could sell your business for 18 months ago, because e-commerce has grown with COVID and because the multiples have gone up slightly, sellers are looking at that saying, you know what, I want to de-risk. I want to take some money off the table. Because when you think about it, if you're doing, let's say, $500,000 in profit, right? The reality is you're not taking that $500,000 and putting it in your pocket every year. Maybe you're taking 150 grand and putting it in your pocket, and then you're having to reinvest into inventory every year. And so if someone comes to you and says, you know what, I'll pay you $2 million for your business, as an example, that's a lot of money relative to what you've been earning every year. So it's there's a very strong argument to say, cool, let me take $2 million. I'll take $1.5 million of that and invest it in a property or another business or something. And then I'll take another $500,000 and then start another Amazon business. There's very strong case to be had for that.
And what do you think about FBA brokers? Because obviously from our perspective, we see a lot of acquisition companies popping up, but at least the same amount of FBA brokers as well. So a lot of sellers think that they reduce their risk by selling such an FBA broker and have less costs, a better selling price in the end. Maybe they have the cost for the FBA broker, but the broker will be able to negotiate a better price. What do you think about that? Should sellers use a broker? Do you also work with brokers who refer clients to you? What's your take on that?
Yeah, so we love brokers. We work with brokers all the time, right? We buy many of our businesses through brokers. So, we certainly like them, and many of them provide a great service. But it's like anything, you have to go to the right broker who knows what they're doing and can really hold your hand, because typically brokers charge you, let's say, 10% additional fee, and so. Sometimes you'll get a better price, but not always, right? And so you have to factor it. There's a couple of things you have to consider. Number one is the speed that you want to sell your business. So, I mean, if you want to talk to, 30 different buyers and you're willing to take the time and you're trying to maximize for the price, you can understand the logic for someone saying, I want to go to a broker. I want them to bring me as many buyers as I can. I want to talk to all the buyers. But it's a very time-consuming process. And in the meantime, you're still trying to run your business, because if during the process of trying to sell your business declines, you have a problem and the buyer is going to pay you a smaller price.
Yeah.
So the alternative argument would be to say, well, let me go directly to a seller like us, like Elevate. And first of all, the process is much faster and simpler, right? We don't need to take time for the seller to prepare the documents and prepare financial information. We do that for them, right? I mean,
really?
Yeah, I mean, all we need is the seller to say, here's user permission access to our Seller Central account. We pull the sales reports, we prepare the financial information. So the seller doesn't have to prepare anything. They can literally come to us and say, here's the user permission. They don't have to do any work. So it's very simple, very easy. And of course, they save the 10% broker fee. We have a policy. We don't underbid someone because they've come to us directly. Because we assume if someone's coming to us directly, we assume they're also talking to other people. And so when we look to prepare a bid to buy the business, We put our best foot forward. We pay a, we'll offer a fair price in the market. So we think if you're trying to optimize for those things, it makes sense to talk to us directly, but we're also very happy to buy through brokers. So
I think the whole selling process is really intimidating for a lot of sellers. And a huge aspect is that a lot of sellers think it takes a really, really long time to sell their business. Now, you just mentioned that if a seller sells to you directly, like they can save a lot of time, but how much time does it take from first talking to you until the business is sold? And what does the time depend on?
yeah. So it can take as little as 30 days, and it usually does. It usually doesn't take more than 30 or 40 days, right? I mean, that's the average for us. It depends more on the seller than on us, because we have a very, very strong team. We have 7 people in our M&A team, plus a whole bunch of analysts. So we've got a super, super strong team who are all very, very experienced. I think we have like 50 years of sort of M&A experience and many billions of dollars worth of deals in experience across our team. So, for us to, and because we've done it so many times, for us to diligence these businesses takes us a very short amount of time. It has more to do with how forthcoming the seller is in providing the information. So if we ask to give us user permissions or give us invoices as it relates to certain supply contracts and give us access to the supply chain, if that information comes efficiently and quickly, there's no reason why we can't, excuse me, no reason why we can't do these deals in sort of 30 days. So it's pretty painless and pretty simple. And the less SKUs, the easier it is, right? I mean, if it's a 1 or 2 SKU business, it can be even faster than 30 days. It can happen in a couple of weeks. If it's got 150 SKUs, then that might take a little bit longer because there's just a little bit more work for us to diligence. But yeah, I mean, as it relates to M&A, where in the typical M&A world, it can take many months to sell a business. As it relates to us and our process, 30 days or so is realistic.
And besides how fast your processes are, what are other reasons to choose you as a buyer for my company as compared to other acquisition companies?
Yeah. So, the primary thing that sort of differentiates us against many of the other roll-ups is that we've been around for a long, long time. I mean, we're veterans of the sport. I think there's maybe 2 or 3 roll-ups that have been around for more than 12 months, and we've been around for 4 years, right? And why that's important is because many times the structure of these deals has an upfront cash component as well as an earn-out component. So the seller gets to benefit. If we grow the business, the seller gets to benefit from that growth, right? And because we've got a really strong track record, because we've actually been in Amazon for a long time, we've got a really strong track record. And so they should be able to earn a slightly higher earnout, or not slightly, they should be able to earn a pretty significant earnout because on average, we're able to grow these businesses sort of 150+% on average. And the other thing is, we relate to sellers very well because we are a seller. We've been a seller. That's how we started. So, we understand that this is their baby, and there's an emotional connection to these businesses, right? And we bootstrapped our business the same way many of the sellers have bootstrapped their business. And so we get it. We also know what it's like to have your Amazon account shut down. We know what it's like to sit on the phone with Seller Central and seller support for 2 days and not get an answer, and the frustrations of dealing with the Amazon black box. So we've been there, we've done it. We relate to sellers. We know exactly what to look for in buying these businesses, so we can make the process very efficient, and we know exactly how to grow them, and we've got a great track record for doing that.
You actually already answered my next question, which would have been about the emotional side of selling your business, because for many sellers, it's their first baby, it's their first big project. And I think a lot of them are scared that they sell it and that the buyer will just take it, try for a few months if they can grow, and if not, then just dump it or sell it to someone else. But you really put in the effort to try to grow it, right?
Sure. Look, I mean, if you've never done these, every seller knows this, that running an Amazon business is not simple, right? It's challenging. There's a lot of competitors. You have to deal with hijackers and black hats and very competitive landscape, and PPCs become more expensive, and there's a lot that goes into it. And so, and the logistics and the FBA, and there's a lot that goes in. And if you've never done it before or you're new to doing it, there's of course a high risk that the business goes backwards. So if you've got the experience like we have, the seller can have more confidence that we're going to be able to grow it.
Can you give me a ballpark number of how many sellers have sold their businesses to you?
Well, put it this way, at the current rate that we're buying businesses, we will be at about 50 plus businesses by the end of this year.
Awesome.
Yeah.
And could you name 3 things that those clients would say about Elevate Brands?
Yeah, sure. We've got a bunch of testimonials on this already. One of the things we hear again and again is you guys are just nice guys and easy to deal with. So it's good. You're pleasant, you're nice guys, you're not sharks. We want on our website we put sharks belong in the ocean, not in the deal room, and and that's the kind of way we like to treat sellers. That it's a collaborative discussion. No one's trying to screw anybody. We believe that we're trying to build a reputation for ourselves that. If we do good by the seller, we treat them well, we treat them fair, we pay them a good price. They're going to tell their friends about us, and when they sell their next Amazon business, they're going to come to us first. And so we're in this game for a long time. We're trying to build a great reputation for ourselves, and so that's one of the things we keep hearing again and again is you guys are nice guys, great to deal with, and it's really a pleasure working with us.
Awesome. And before we move to the personal questions, I have one last question, a professional question for you. In your opinion, what's the main mistake that sellers make when it comes to selling their Amazon business?
Yeah, the biggest mistake we've seen is that the sellers get distracted during the sales process. Mm-hmm. So, if sometimes you're dealing with brokers, for example, and you can deal with a broker and the business, it can happen very quickly. But sometimes from the time you start speaking to them, till the time you're kind of getting towards selling, you're in LOI and you're in underwriting, it can be several months. And from a seller's perspective, it's very challenging because you're in this kind of no man's land where you're trying to operate the business, but you're also trying to get out of the business, and emotionally, you start to become less and less invested. And so like what we've seen happen is we've seen businesses go backwards during the underwriting process. The seller forgot to reorder more inventory or didn't order enough inventory. And that creates real challenges because the last thing we as a buyer want to do is buy a business and there's no inventory.
Yeah,
right?
Sure.
So that's a major problem for us. And then it becomes challenging because we've agreed on a price for the business, assuming that there would be inventory. And so that's one of the things that we've seen can be challenging. And so one of the things we always remind our sellers is, as we're talking to them, guys, you need to keep running the business as though it's not going to sell, because you never know. We always close deals. We've never backed out on something unless something was untoward, where something wasn't disclosed properly, or the numbers that were presented were completely way off. But there's always a risk, and whether you're selling to us or someone else, there's always a risk that the deal doesn't close. So you want to make sure you continue to operate it as though it's not going to sell.
Okay, so the seller should keep being invested in the business even when they're like halfway out of the door.
It's challenging, but that's what has to be done. Yes.
Okay. I just thought of another question. What about non-competing clause? I don't know. So when I sell toasters, for example, and I sell my toaster business to you, do I have to sign anything that I can start another business that also sells toasters, or?
Yes. We don't want to buy a business and then someone comes and starts the exact same business, the next day and then competes with us. Starting another Amazon business, fine. No problem, right? But just not starting another business that sells the identical kind of product that goes and competes with our specific SKU. Amazon's a big marketplace, so there's many different niches. And so we're only too happy. I mean, we just bought a business from someone last week and it was their 5th Amazon exit. So they've sold 5 businesses and they're about to go and start the 6th one now. So it's amazing, and we love that. Yeah.
Okay, good. Then let's move on to the personal questions. My first one would be, what made you decide to found Recom Brands, or now Elevate Brands, and why did you decide to become an entrepreneur in general?
Yeah, you know, I always had the feeling that I wanted to have my own business, right? You know, there's something about sort of being in charge of your own destiny that is nice. Where, you know, I previously worked at a corporate, and at the end of the year, your boss tells you how much bonus you're earning, right? And I always like the idea of like, I should be the one to decide how much I'm going to make, right? You know, just to be in charge of your own destiny. But also,
Yeah.
I think I've always been attracted to kind of doing things with great people and building something. And it didn't matter what it was. I always had the idea that like working with a great team and building something fun and exciting. And so I always had that desire. And in my previous career, you know, I felt like my growth curve was slowing down in terms of, I just wasn't my learning curve, my growth curve. I wasn't learning as much as I was in the early days. And I happen to be like quite growth oriented. I really, you know, and I think most people, when you're progressing and you're constantly learning, like you tend to be happier. And
Yeah.
so, you know, I left my previous career. I came to the US in 2016, not knowing what I was going to do. And I went to an Amazon conference one day because I was just looking for businesses to buy or a business to start. I wasn't sure what I wanted to do. And I went to an Amazon conference and I found the community super collaborative. It's like a really interesting collaborative community. I found a lot of very, very fragmented small sellers, all like many of them doing really, really well. And I looked at the trend, the macro trend for e-commerce and saw that it was growing very fast. And I felt like there was no way that e-commerce in 10 years would be the same size or any smaller than it is today. And so like the trend was very positive and I figured, let me try and do something. Amazon's interesting, e-commerce is interesting. Let me start. I wasn't sure exactly what I was going to do, but I figured let me get started and the strategy will evolve over time. And as long as I'm working with great people and learning every day, I'm sure I'll figure something out that will be substantial. And so that's what we did. And so we originally started by just doing some private label and a little bit of retail arbitrage and a little bit of closeout, and the strategy evolved.
So you just decided to go for learning by doing.
That's always been my approach. I come across sellers sometimes that study Amazon for 6 months or 12 months, and they read all the books and they go to all the seminars. And sometimes I say to them, you'll learn more by just going into like a Nike outlet store, buying a pair of Nike shoes, okay, and then just sending them to Amazon and selling one pair of shoes, because you'll learn then how the process works. And there's a confidence you get with every sale. Whether it's selling a single pair of shoes or buying your first business and watching it grow, there's a certain confidence you get every time you achieve something. And I've always believed that big successes are nothing more than an accumulation of many, many, many small successes. And so I always suggest, like, get started and just create one micro success and then build on top of that success.
I love that. That's a great way to think about it, because I think so many sellers are intimidated because they see so many people on like Facebook groups say like, oh, I just made my first million, and they don't even have their first sale. So they're so scared of just jumping into it.
Yeah.
They just never do it. So breaking it down to like baby successes is a really good way of thinking of it.
Totally.
Great.
Yeah.
I assume that your days now look very different from your corporate days. Now you're in Mexico. You just decided to like leave New York. Is this normal, or how does your typical day look like?
Well, I mean, I've been in Mexico for a week now. Typically I'm in New York, but whether I'm in New York or Mexico, I still work 18-hour days, right? So it doesn't change. But at least on the weekend, we can go to the beach and we can enjoy some nice weather. But it's interesting how my role almost every month becomes something different. When I started the business, I was hardcore in the operations, right? And then as the business model evolved, then I became like a full-time recruiter. Then I became like a strategist because I was having to figure out what the right strategy is. And then once we nailed the strategy, then I became like a fundraiser, because I had to go get the money. And then once I raised the money, then I had to become like a recruiter to go and get the team and sell the vision and get the team. And so like my role's constantly evolving. And now it's kind of a combination of those things where, We have a really, really strong team. So I'm still involved to some extent in the operational side. But as the team gets stronger and stronger, I can pull out further and further and be involved more strategically, more involved in capital allocation with investors and that kind of thing. So it's you know, I'm not someone who likes routine a lot.
Yeah,
Okay.
I figured.
Yeah, and so for me, like I kind of enjoy the fact that it's evolving and it's always dynamic
Yeah.
and different. I enjoy that. Yeah, and
And
I mean, and the reality is like spending time just with my team and just talking to people during the day and finding out what's going on and lending a hand. You know, I've always believed like the best leaders are kind of resources. You hire fantastic people who know what they're doing and are super motivated. Like I don't have to motivate the team. They are very, very self-motivated, but I try and provide a resource where I can to make sure that they can be super successful in their role.
I was going to say you did a really good job as a recruiter because now you have the confidence in your team to basically run everything on their own. So
Yeah. Yeah.
good job on that.
Recruiting is maybe the most important thing you do as a, you know, as a business owner is making sure you have the right people in the right seats, you know, at the right time.
So you went through many, many roles and still are. So I'm sure that you developed a lot of skills and maybe also character traits over the time. But let's focus on right now. Like right now, if you could have a skill, a certain skill or character trait that you don't have right now, but you wish you had, which one would it be?
You know, it's a really great question. I would say, you know, I would love to speak another language. You know, I'd love to, like, when I say another language, like, I'd love to speak Mandarin, right? I've just, it's something that I've wanted. My brother speaks fluent Mandarin. He lived in China for 10 years, and I've
Oh,
always thought it was a
awesome.
super cool thing. And I don't know that it would necessarily help me in business, but I feel like it would be, it would just be a great skill to have.
Yeah, definitely. Do you speak any other languages besides English?
You know, I lived in Indonesia for 8 years, so I speak some Bahasa,
Mm-hmm.
and I speak a little bit of Hebrew because I studied some Hebrew when I was younger. Yeah, and you know, a very small amount of Afrikaans because I grew up in South Africa.
Oh, you grew up in South Africa.
Yeah, yeah,
Oh man, that's awesome. So
yeah.
you could also go to the Netherlands and maybe understand a little bit of
True. That's
the
true. That's true.
awesome,
Very similar.
awesome.
Exactly. Dutch.
Oh, I wish I could speak Hebrew. There's such a great e-commerce community in New York.
Yeah.
So yeah, I wish I could like talk in Hebrew to them. All right. If you could have a superpower, so nothing human, but like supernatural, which one would it be?
Superpower. I don't know that I've ever been asked the question. You know, I I'm going to answer the first thing that comes to my mind, right?
Okay.
And I've just been reading a book called The Outliers, which is about 8 like really amazing CEOs, right? Um, and what made them so amazing is that they were just incredible capital allocators, right? And they were very independent in their thought and very contrarian in their thought, right? And the challenge about being contrarian in your thought is that, you know, we as humans tend to get swept up in whatever the current climate is, right? And so it's something that I want to continue to work on is to be really kind of steadfast in my independence of thought and have the right temperament for allocating capital as my career and we grow the business develops. Because it's easier said than done. Like, you know,
Yeah.
having the temperament and making sure you think things through carefully and not get swept up in crazes is I think a critically important factor for success. So that's the first thing that comes to my mind.
Awesome. I mean, I don't want to like superpower shame anyone, but like this definitely sounds more interesting than just saying like flying or something.
That would be fun too. Yeah.
um, okay, then let's move to another scenario that probably will not happen or is not so likely to happen. If you could hire a famous person to work for you or with you, can be a famous CEO, can also be like a singer, actor, songwriter, whatever. Who would it be and why? Time to show your recruiting talent.
Well, I hear Jeff Bezos is now out of a job. And so like maybe he wants to consider coming to work for us. I don't know. I have to reach out to him and see if he's interested in a job, you know?
Yeah,
You
maybe
know?
discuss salary a bit.
Yeah, I'm not sure. I'm not sure if we could afford him, but maybe if we give him a few stock options, maybe we can get him over the line, you know?
Okay, it's good that we're already talking about Amazon CEOs or former CEOs. If you had the chance to go to see and speak with Andy Jassy, I hope I pronounced his last name the right way, the new
Yeah.
CEO of Amazon, and you could ask him one thing or for one thing, what would it be?
Well, look, I mean, you know, the thing that everyone keeps asking me, as if I would somehow know the answer, is what's his approach going to be to the Amazon third-party seller community?
Yeah.
And so, like, I'd love to talk to him about that because everyone keeps asking me. And my thought on the subject is that I don't think he's going to change anything dramatic. I mean, the Amazon third-party seller community is the Amazon third-party marketplace, I should say, is so strong and is now one of Amazon's biggest profit centers and growing super fast. So I don't see any way that's going to change anytime soon. But I would love to sort of pick his brain on how the marketplace is going to develop. You know, what new initiatives are coming into place. You know, as Shopify grows, I'm curious how Amazon thinks about Shopify and Walmart's growth. And I'd love to kind of just pick his brain about what he sees for the next kind of 5 years or so.
And if you obtained all those secrets, would you share them or just keep them for yourself?
I would share them with you for sure, and all of your.
Oh yeah, perfect. Okay, that's all I wanted to hear. I don't care about the rest.
You know what? You know, it's funny. One of my old mentors used to say, ideas and secrets are just not that important, right? You know, far more important is execution. You know, many of us have access to all the same information, and it's never what you do; it's always how you do it, and it's always in the execution. So. We feel strongly in collaborating with other sellers and other people in the community. We share information. I think we're all stronger for it. It's a huge marketplace, and it's all in the execution.
Yeah. Perfect. Okay, then sadly we're already at the last question, or it's not really a question, it's more of a task. So I will give you 60 seconds now. And you will just tell me the most important advice or advices that you have for any Amazon seller out there. Is that okay with you?
Sure. Yeah, sure. Okay. Of course.
Then I would say we start in 3, 2, 1, go.
Okay. So first of all, depending on where you are as an Amazon seller, if you're in the very early stages and you haven't actually launched your business, my advice would be just get started. Just start where you stand. You don't need to raise the perfect amount of capital or find the perfect team or find the perfect product. Just begin somewhere very small, even like I said earlier, buying a pair of shoes and selling it on Amazon, just so you can get started and start to understand and build those confidence and build the micro successes. So that's kind of the first thing I would say. For the more established sellers out there, what I would say is, really test, okay? Like test often and thoroughly. So, we've bought businesses, for example, where the sellers have never tested changing the price. They may have set a price at $19.95 and they never thought to change it. And sometimes we'll buy a business and we'll look at that and say, well, what if we increase the price to $25? What would happen? So oftentimes, that's a minute already, by the way. I didn't realize how quickly they go.
It's okay, it's okay.
I'll keep going. Oftentimes, just a small change like that, you may not even see an impact to your sales because there's price inelasticity and now you've just increased your margins, right? And if you can dovetail that with at the same time doing a rebranding effort, because Amazon is such a visual platform, if you can really optimize your branding and you can test it against your competitors, you can see tremendous conversion improvements, and at the same time, if you can increase pricing a little bit, that can have a dramatic impact. Or sometimes maybe you need to reduce pricing because maybe your margin reduces slightly, but your sales will double, And so like, you know, it's just a question of testing, iterating, and trying to figure out which one's going to give you the optimal results. So.
Okay, we just say, okay, it's 2 minutes, but that's okay because it was 2 great advices.
Okay, good. Perfect.
Perfect. All right, Ryan, thank you so much for your time. This was a really nice interview with lots of valuable information. I hope you had as much fun as I did.
Yeah.
And yeah, I hope you will enjoy the rest of your time in Mexico. And of course, I wish you lots of success buying Amazon businesses.
Perfect. Well, thank you very much.
All right, that's it for today. That was my interview with Ryan. I think it was a lot of fun. I hope you guys enjoyed it too. If you have any questions for Ryan about selling your Amazon business or any questions for me, simply drop your comment below this video. I also included some helpful links in the description box where you can find out more about Elevate Brands and Sermando.com. And yeah, I guess that's all there is to say for today. If you haven't subscribed to our channel yet, you can do this now by either clicking the Sermando globe somewhere here or the red subscribe button somewhere here. And if you do so, I will see you guys very, very soon.